So good morning once again, all my dear student. Since last week we have discussed overview of the regulatory bodies, and we have discussed couple of bodies in short, like US FDA, EMA, then UK MHRA, PMDA, WHO, ICH, ROW countries, Asian countries, right? So today we are going to discuss in more details, the regulatory bodies across the world and different markets, and the brief introduction of the registration process. Okay, since you have understood what is regulatory affairs, what are the roles and responsibilities of regulatory professional, how they have to play a major role in pharma, medical device, and other industry, so that they bring some revenue to the company and they help organization for meeting all the registration guidelines, bringing all the marketing authorization, and there are a couple of things they advise right from the drug development till marketing, post marketing, and everywhere the regulatory people are required. So all the content I have gathered from the freely available sources, and the sources are acknowledged. So everybody is aware of what is drug, right? Just to introduce brief terminology about the drug regulation, because drugs plays important part in our life, day to day life. Nowadays, if you see during COVID, remdesivir and so many drugs are playing important role to cure the disease. Correct. So drugs are what all medicines for internal or external use of human beings or animals, and all substances intended to be used for diagnosis, treatment, mitigation, or prevention of any disease or disorder in human beings or animals. So drugs are not only used in human beings, it is used for animals as well. Okay, and what is regulation? We have seen the definition of regulatory affairs, right? The regulatory affairs is what? Collecting, analyzing, and communicating risk and benefit of pharmaceutical product to different agencies all over the world. So, like that, regulation is what? To regulate means to control something that so that it functions properly, right? So, while walking on the road, we have the traffic rule. We have to follow the signals, right? And when you are driving the car, if you are going to take right turn or left turn, you have to give the signal to the behind car. Also, when you are into traffic, you have to follow the signals designed by the government. Correct. So that is why everywhere, if any, everywhere, everything has to be regulated, and so everyone should have control on each process. So when you are going to market your drug, your medical device, or anything in the market, there should be some control. Okay, so who controls? The regulatory bodies have the control. So that is why when it is controlled, we have to follow their strict regulation, norms, standards, formats. As I said, different country specific, regional specific requirements we have to meet, and we have to follow the different format when you submit the application, that is CTD, ECTD, ACTD, NIS. Okay. So in the following chapter, we are going to learn those different formats as well. So drugs plays, as I said, very important role in the health and economy of a country. And pharmaceutical drugs are available from number of sources to ensure that they meet prescribed standards, to ensure the safety, efficacy, and quality of the drugs, as well as accuracy and appropriateness of the drug information available to the public. So not only safety, efficacy, and quality is important, the accuracy and the appropriateness of the drug information available to the public is also important. Means what? You must have seen the label claim, correct? The label which is provided, store in a cool, dry place. The dose, the paracetamol tablet contains 250 milligram of paracetamol. Okay, then you will see number of indications, contraindications given. So whatever you are claiming, that information should be very accurate and appropriate. Whatever drug information you must have displayed on your label. The most important is, the drug manufacturing date, the expiry date, the batch number, the lot number, the manufacturer's address. So everything should be placed on your label. So, so that the people who are consuming our drugs or drug product should be aware of the accurate information. Okay. So, what is the key function of regulatory agencies? So, main is product registration, then the regulation of drug manufacturing, importation, and distribution. So, suppose today we are manufacturing drugs in India, but tomorrow you may go to, US, Europe, Canada, or rest of the world, and you establish your manufacturing facility. If you have enough funds and if your company is doing well, you can go to exporting countries. Similarly, if even if you don't have manufacturing unit at abroad, you can export your drugs sitting in India as well. So that is why manufacturing, even you can import. So most of the manufacturer import raw material from the China. Why? Because of the economical, the rate is low as compared to other country. So we should understand the import export business and the distribution. You should have distribution channel throughout the world, right? It again depends on the company size and what the company strategies is, what the company's vision is. So many companies like Cipla, Novartis, then Sun Pharma, Ipca and all, they have well-established market. They have captured huge market not only in India, in US, Europe, and rest of the world. So all the key here, what we are discussing is the key function of drug regulatory agency is whatever applicant is manufacturing, importing, exporting, or distributing, they have to control. You know, then not only manufacturing, importing, and distribution, also the adverse drug reaction monitoring, then the licensing of premises and persons and practices. Main goal of the agency is to guarantee the safety, efficacy, and quality of the and the availability of the product. Correct. So these are the key function of the drug regulatory agencies. So same thing we have put it in the image form. So there are drug information center, quality control, drugs laws, drug regulatory bodies, and drug regulatory agency, drug regulatory boards. Correct. So how it functions, that is shown by the way of this pictorial diagram. So in our world, like there are so many agencies, correct? So many health authorities. If you see Europe, just see so many health authorities. As I said last week, you can visit our website www.rajpharmaelearning.com, and under the download section, you will see all the drug regulatory bodies. If you click there, it will go to the respective health authorities website. You can see these are the websites. Okay, so if you want to search for Netherlands, you need not to type www.netherlands or something. So directly the respective health authorities link is provided, so that it would be easy for you to go through each health authority around the world and search for the information. Okay, so North America, Australia, UK, MHRA, Middle East, Central or South America. See, that is Latin America. So in Brazil, they called it at Anvisa, Colombia, Invima, Mexico, Cofepris. So you can see different name. Australia, TGA, New Zealand is MedSafe. FDA is a common terminology. So in US also it is called US FDA. In India also it's called FDA or CDSCO or local FDA, Health Canada, SFDA, Saudi Arabia is called SFDA. Chinese is called CFDA. So you can see there are so many country-specific rules and regulations you have to follow. Asia Pacific, in that Southeast Asian countries are 10 and rest all, Asia Pacific, China, India, Indonesia, Japan. Then African countries, you can just browse through. IFDA. So now we'll see the registration process in UK. So as per your syllabus, we are, we have captured some information so that you understand in detail. So registration process in UK. After Brexit, UK MHRA has become a independent health authority, independent body in Europe. So MCA was UK licensing authority and part of the Department of Health responsible for safeguarding public health by ensuring that all medicines meet acceptable standards, responsible also for clinical trial exemption or clinical trial certificate. So this MHRA formed in 2003 with the merger of Medicine Control Agency. Earlier it is called MCA, and the Medical Device Agency, that is MDA. So in 2003, these two bodies merged together, MCA and MDA, and they formed this new body. But in April 2013, it merged with the National Institute of Biological Standards and Control, that is NIBSC, and was rebranded with MHRA identity being used solely for the regulatory centers within the group. So, Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, that is MHRA, is an executive agency of the Department of Health and Social Care in United Kingdom, which is responsible for ensuring that medicines and medical devices are acceptably safe. Right. So, as I said several times, that each health authority is looking for, the drugs which are manufactured and sold in their respective countries are safe for human use. So, any health authority's main objective is to protect public health, and in order to protect public health, we have to meet those three parameters: quality, safety, and efficacy. Okay. So this is MHRA, the objective, and they are also looking forward with the safety and efficacy of the product. And these are the some major role of MHRA, that is operate post-marketing surveillance for reporting, investigating, and monitoring of ADR. ADR is the adverse drug reaction, assessment and authorization of medicinal product for sale and supply, and operate a quality surveillance to sample and test medicine to address quality defects and monitor the safety and quality of unlicensed product. Then it regulates clinical trial of medicine and medical devices and monitor and ensure compliance with the statutory obligation relating to the medicine and medical devices. So in short, the major role played in PV, then the drugs and the medical devices you can see, and of course the quality surveillance to the sample and test. So the sample and test which are done at the UKMHRA, so they go for the quality surveillance. Okay, so as I mentioned last week, there are four types of authorization process. The four types of marketing authorization. One is centralized procedure, decentralized procedure, nationalized procedure, and the mutual recognition. Okay, if you recollect, can someone unmute and tell how the centralized procedure happens, how decentralized, that is DCP, national, and mutual recognition? I have briefly told you last week, if you recollect.
Ma'am,
Hello?
centralized is when we apply for all the European Union nations together
Correct.
for
So one
authorization.
application, then whole Europe approval, correct? And it is specially for what?
rare drugs
Yeah,
and
rare disease, then biotech, vaccines, biologicals, right? Then decentralized, nationalized. Do you recollect? Nationalized, NP, NPCP, DCP, MRP. No?
nationalized is when we apply for only one member
Yeah,
state.
correct. So single application to single country. And mutual, then the word itself tells, see, once you get one country, one application, then mutually you can recognize, right? So you can go through multiple countries. Once you entered into Europe, because Europe is so big, no? 27 plus 3 countries. So around 30 countries, 30 member state, I mean to say. Okay. So let us discuss in detail. The centralized procedure is one which allows applicants to obtain a marketing authorization that is valid throughout the Europe via single application to EMA. Okay, EMEA. So what are the features? Results in a single authorization valid in Europe. An application evaluated by an assigned rapporteur. Timelines is 210 days and submitted to European Commission for the final approval. Okay, EC is the European Commission. And required for medicine of biotechnology processes, cancer, HIV, AIDS, diabetes, orphan. Even in case of our COVID, it will go through centralized procedure, correct? So that the drug is approved and it is available to whole Europe, correct? Through the single application. Then mutual recognition procedure means what? It allows applicant to obtain a marketing authorization in the member state, that is concerned member state, other than the member state that is reference member state. As I mentioned, you have to select one country as a reference member state and multiple country as a concerned member state, RMS, CMS. Okay. So when you go for nationalized procedure, that is one country, one application. After that, see if you already taken the approval in say for example France or Italy, then you can go for MRP. Okay, so where the drug is previously approved. Correct. What are the features of MRP? That applicant submits identical dossier to all European member states in which it wants authorization, including required information. And as soon as one member state decides to evaluate the medicinal product, at which point it becomes the RMS, right? It notifies this decision to other member states, which then becomes the CMS. Pretty simple. RMS and CMS concept. Are you clear with? Say yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So CMS means the concerned member state, right? To whom applications have been submitted. And RMS means you have to select one country. Now, in case of NP, you have already previously approved the drug, correct? That can become your RMS. Am I right? And so that you can mutually recognize other country, you select 5 more countries or 6 more countries as per your company's regulatory strategy and move forward. Then in this case, RMS issues a report to other states on its own findings. Generic industry is the major user of this type of drug approval procedure, correct? Because it is easy and in one single application, you can select multiple CMS and go ahead, right? And this process may consume a time period of 390 days. In nationalized procedure, as we mentioned, nationalized procedure is one which allows applicants to obtain a marketing authorization in one member state only. Okay, in one member state only. And in order to obtain a national marketing authorization, an application must be submitted to the competent authority to the member state. So whenever new active substances which are not mandatory under centralized procedure can obtain marketing authorization under this procedure, and this procedure takes 210 days as a timeline. Okay. Then decentralized procedure. Using the procedure, companies may apply for authorization simultaneously in more than one European country for products that have not yet been authorized in any country. Correct? So based on the assessment, MRP and DCP is more or less same because here also you have to select RMS and the multiple country as CMS. So that the assessment report is provided prepared by the RMS, and any comments made by the CMS, marketing authorization should be granted in accordance with the decision making by RMS and CMS in this decentralized procedure. So generally used for this procedure is for products those has not yet received any authorization in European country. Okay, the time required is 210 days. Pretty simple. In Europe, there are four regulatory systems: centralized, decentralized, nationalized, and the mutual recognition. Now we move forward with the registration process in Australia. Australia is called as TGA, Therapeutics Good Administration. So this is a unit of the Australian Government Department of Health and Aging, is responsible for administering the Act, which came into effect on 15 February 1991. So the responsibility for the regulatory control lies with the Therapeutic Goods Administration as the national regulatory authority for therapeutic goods. Okay, what is the role of TGA? Is to pre-market evaluation, development, maintenance, and monitoring of the system, licensing of manufacturers in accordance with the international standards of GMPs, and post-marketing monitoring through sampling, adverse event reporting, surveillance activities, and response to public inquiries and assessment of medicines for export. So, regulation of clinical trials by TGA, how it happens in case of clinical trials? There are two processes, okay? There are two schemes rather. One is CTX, another is CTN. What is CTX means? Trial sponsor notifies TGA of their intention to conduct a clinical trial using an unapproved therapeutic goods. Okay. So whenever there is a new molecule coming to market you want to introduce, you can go through CTX because there is unapproved therapeutic goods. Okay. Then CTN. What is CTN? Clinical trial notification. This is for exemption, this is for notification. So the TGA does not review any data relating to clinical trial. The CTN form is submitted by the investigator on behalf of the sponsor to the HREC, that is Human Research Ethics Committee, and to the approving authority, that is AA. Once the sponsor, the principal investigator, the chairman of HREC, and the person responsible for the approving authority have signed the CTN form, it is submitted to the sponsor of the trial to the TGA along with the appropriate notification fees. So here I have described the main difference between CTN and CTX. We will read one by one. Okay. So CTN is in general it's a notification process. CTX is the approval process. Okay. This is one step process to notify, and here it is two-step process. Part 1 is for approval and part 2 for notification. Understood? CTN can be used for medicinal devices or biologicals, and here it can be used for medicinal devices or biologicals, but required for class 4 biologicals. Okay. Here, no TGA review of the data prior to trial, and trial cannot commence without valid notification and fees paid. Here, trials cannot commence without part 1 being approved. CTN assurances pertaining to the trial conduct and the protocol are provided by the sponsor, HREC, PI. PI is the product information, A is approved authority. Okay. So the assurance pertaining to trial conduct and the protocol are provided by the sponsors. So HR, EC, PI, and AI. very approving authority is required in both cases, okay, and assurance pertaining to the trial conduct and the protocol are provided by the sponsor, okay. So you can see this is more or less common to both. Then each additional trial site must be notified before commencing trial at that site, correct? And here may conduct any number of clinical trials under the CTX application without further assessment by the TGA, provided use of the product in trial falls within the original approved usage, and each trial conducted must be notified to the TGA. Simple, because see here it was explained just the definition. There are two schemes for CTX and CTA and how it happens, but the major difference is given in under these two schemes as follows. Okay, so there will be a short notes or the MCQ type of questionnaire will be asked in your exams. So that's the reason I have gathered information in such a way that so that it would be easy for you to understand and write your paper. Okay,
Ma'am,
yeah.
ma'am, CTX is to get an exemption for conducting a clinical trial, or is it for approval? Because earlier it was mentioned that it is an exempted, that is for that is unapproved product, and here it is like you have two process, that is one is approval. So I didn't get
This is
like.
CTX. This is two process now in the CTX. Approval and the notification. Here only notification.
No, but it is for exemption or to get an approval, because CTX is exemption, right?
These are the two schemes. Clinical trial exemption, that is trial sponsors notifies the TGA of their intention to conduct a clinical trial. Okay, by using the unapproved therapeutic good. Have you understood the definition? See, the applicant who is going to conduct the clinical trial, okay, the sponsor, the trial sponsor, he has to notify to the TGA what is their intention to conduct the clinical trial using this unapproved therapeutic good. Okay, and here the TGA does not review any data relating to the clinical trial. The CTN form is submitted by the investigator on behalf of sponsor to the HREC directly. Understood? What you do, you just read once again in your mind the differences between these two processes. I will give 2-3 minutes. You read left, right, like that.
Ma'am,
Hmm?
what is class for biologicals?
Those are highest classification, like see the risk based. How the medical devices are also classified as class 1, class 2, class 3, low risk, medium risk, high risk. You know? That way, the biologicals are also classified.
Okay, ma'am.
So once you read one by one, you just tell me. Yeah? Usually, classification done on risk. The highest risk will be the class 4. Finished reading?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll move forward with the prescription drugs. Okay. So prescription drugs means, you know, OTC and prescription drug, the difference. You know the meaning of OTC?
Over the counter.
Over the counter. So over the counter drugs are prescribed or not prescribed?
Not prescribed.
Right? So the prescription and non-prescription. Prescription means RX drug, which are prescribed by the health practitioners. And OTC means non-RX, which is not prescribed. The prescription is not necessary. Okay, you can just pick up from the window shopping wherever you go. Like now, Crocin, Digene. There are so many drugs are available which are OTC, categorized as OTC. That means what? It is over the counter available, and we need not to have the what prescription. So what is prescription drugs are classified into three categories application. We are describing under TG. Yeah? So category 1 is application include new chemical entities, new dosage form, new strains and new generic products, significant variations to an existing application. Okay, so these are all category 1. Category 2 can only be utilized when an application has been previously accepted in 2 countries. Require shorter time frame for evaluation. You got my point? So category is 1 is totally new, correct? Whether it is NCE, new dosage form, new strain, new generic, okay? But category 2 means what can only be utilized when an application has the previously accepted in 2 countries. Right? So suppose if I have a drug which is already approved in US and Europe, so I can go for category 2. Understood? Which requires shorter time frame for evaluation. Category 3 means what? Involve changes to the quality data of medicine already included on the ARTG. What is ARTG? Is a Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods. Okay? Which do not need to be supported by clinical, non-clinical or bioequivalence data. Example, the shelf life and the storage conditions, labeling and packaging, replacement, trade name, minor changes in the formulation. So understood the difference. If I ask a question in your exam, what is the difference between category 1, 2 and 3? Have you understood? Tell me yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
So category 1 means what? All new product, right? New chemical entity, NCE, new dosage, new strain, new generics. Category 2 means what? Any of the 2 country it is already approved and we are going under category 2. Correct? So that our approval time is shorter. Category 3 means what? Product is already there in your ARTG. Correct? It is already there in Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods and which do not need to be supported by clinical, non-clinical or bioequivalence data. That means the drug is already proven that it is safe. Everything is available in ARTG. So that suppose if you want to change your shelf life, storage condition, labeling, packaging, so you can go through this third category route. Now understood? In some cases you want to change trade name, there are minor changes, okay? So these are the brief process of category 1 and 2 application evaluation process. Okay, it looks bit complicated, but it is easy when you try to understand from the application is submitted. The submission after submission, application entry review, then evaluation by TG or external auditor. You can see whether it is accepted or not. Suppose if something is additionally asked, the additional data you have to give, correct? So in these two, like when you submit the ECTD application, there will be a pre-submission meeting. Understood? So this considered as one block with the second step and the third step major. So if you see each arrow, each arrow going towards where, like arrow ends to, which block. Now you understood? See, the quality, once the application goes to TGA and it is reviewed, the communication start, back and forth communication start, either for the additional data or what. If it is not accepted, then of course you have to resubmit. Okay. And if it is accepted, then they will ask for further queries with additional data and so on. And once this TGA start evaluation, it start like this. One is quality review, because eCTD application comprises of module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So module 3 comprises of quality data, which is CMC data. Module 4 is non-clinical and module 5 is clinical. Correct? So all modules, different modules goes for the review. Am I right? Then the review report is submitted. Correct? Then there is a pharmaceutical subcommittee, that is PSC. Okay, review report is given to the delegate. Delegate seeks advice on the ADEC. Okay, and then ADEC reviews delegate request for the ADEC advice and sponsors comment before making a recommendation. Now here, suppose if anything goes wrong in your non-clinical and clinical data, okay, and if rejected, then applicant may appeal or reapply. Okay. So sometimes what happens, in some cases, suppose if you are given, in case of generic, you are given with the bioequivalence studies, okay, and you have given only the fasted BABE studies, and FAID is pending. So they may revert back, the agency may revert back and they will ask to provide the FAID BABE studies. And till that time, your application will be on hold. Okay. So then, if you are ready to provide the FAID BABE studies, then it will be accepted, and again your application will be opened. Okay, and then again it is evaluated, and the final product approval will be given. Understood? You can just study yourself like that. This is category 3 application evaluation. Okay, so you can read. Once it is applied, it goes for review. If it is accepted, you can see additional data. Not accepted, then what happened? Then you have to resubmit. Am I right? So evaluation by TGA or external auditor. Again, the file, the dossier is divided into different reviewer, module 3, 4, and 5. Correct? Then review report is submitted. If review report is approved, then what? ARTG entry is updated with the new changes. If it is rejected, applicant may appeal or reapply. Simple, pretty easy to understand. This is for category 1 and 2. This is for category 3 application. So I will again ask, what is category 1 and 2 application is for? Tell me.
One is for new products, and 2 is where it is applicable in other two, except in other 2 countries.
Correct. Very good. And 3? Category 3? Hello? Category 3
Already
is
there, already present in the register of Australia.
ARTG, correct.
ARTG.
Very good, very good. And some example, I will quote that. What? Suppose in case if you want to increase your shelf life, see earlier was 2 years expiry, so now you have studied and you can increase your shelf life to 3 years. Okay. So sometimes storage condition, you may find that under high humidity, the product gets spoiled. So you can change the storage condition, labeling, sometimes packaging also, in that case, category 3 is important. Okay. So pretty clear about TGA process. What is TGA full form?
Therapeutic goods administration.
Therapeutic Goods Administration. And ARTG? ARTG?
Australian Registration of Therapeutic Goods.
Yeah, Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods. Correct? And what is HREC? Human Research Ethics Committee. PI is a product information. And AA is a approving authority. Okay? CTN, CTX. CTN is a clinical trial exemption scheme, clinical trial notification scheme. Okay? And you know the difference between prescription and non-prescription. Understood, no? OTC and RX to OTC switches. Have you heard about? Hello?
No, ma'am.
See, whenever you want to sell your product into market, it is always prescribed by a doctor, right? Physician. Can you take atorvastatin tablet or any antibiotic, CNS drugs without prescription? Tell me. Can you take?
No, ma'am.
No. So for all drugs has to be prescribed by a doctor, then only you can purchase the medicine from the medical shop. Correct? Why do we need the prescription? Tell me. Because doctor diagnose, right? If you have any disease, if you suffer from any ailment, you go to the doctor or physician, correct? Now you have heart pain, you go to the cardiac surgeon, correct? So like that, all the doctors, physicians are specialized in different therapeutic area. Similarly, our drugs are produced in different therapeutic category. Anti-diabetic, antihistaminic, am I right? Anti-hypertensive drugs, CNS drugs, anti-AIDS, anti-cancer. So like that, doctors are also specialized in different areas. So when we have any disease, any ailments, we go to the doctor. Doctor checks, correct? He asks for the blood check or any other uh, test has to be performed, correct? And accordingly, he decides which drug to be prescribed to the patient. And accordingly, when the drugs are prescribed, then only you can go and buy from the medical shop. Correct? But some drugs which are available in the market years and years, they have proven to be very safe. One example I will quote as crocin. Do we need a prescription from the doctor to purchase the crocin from medical shop?
No, ma'am.
No, correct? Do you go directly and ask, Bhaiya ek crocin dena, then Digene. Then there are so many other drugs which are available and which is labeled as OTC product, which is non-prescription. Okay. So understood the difference between OTC, the prescription and the non-prescription drug?
Yes, ma'am.
Say yes or no? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
So now we will take 5 minutes break. Is it okay? Before I
Okay,
move
ma'am.
to registration process in Brazil. Thank you. So to continue with the registration process in Brazil, as I said, Brazil Health Authority is called ANVISA. Okay. So ANVISA is a regulatory body of Brazil. It's the biggest country of South America. And some of the small countries nearby Brazil are following the rules according to ANVISA. ANVISA means Agencia Nacional de Vigilancia Sanitaria. So They are very vigilant. One of the strong body which follows the strict international standards, the regulation, because we have faced ANVISA audit couple of times. And ANVISA, I found sometimes stricter than the US FDA also, you know. So the abbreviation in Portuguese language, so they have their local languages, Portuguese. In English, it means National Health Surveillance Agency, or sometimes it is written as Brazilian Health Surveillance Agency. Okay, so ANVISA. So it was established in 1999 by President Fernando Henrique Cardoso. ANVISA is responsible for monitoring drug prices, prices of medical devices, control and inspection of smoking products, technical support in granting of patents by the National Institute of Industrial Property, protection of the health of the population by exercising sanitary control over production, and marketing of products and services subject to sanitary surveillance, controlling ports, airports, and borders, and linked to Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Institution over matters concerning international aspects of sanitary surveillance. So how registration happens? Registration of new drug, mainly in three parts. Okay. First is pre-registration measures. That is, you have to provide protocol for the clinical studies. Then the registration takes place. That is, documents to be submitted, protocol for new drug and protocol for import of new drug. Then the post-registration means alteration in registration, renewal, and the registration. How we have seen the three categories in the TGA. Here there are three parts, right? One is pre-registration, second registration, and post-registration. Thus, these three parts can be considered similar to IND, NDA, and supplementary NDA as per US FDA. Pre-registration measures what in case of new national drug product, the protocols of the clinical studies and the results or current status of the studies in compliance with the legislation in force has to be submitted. And in case of new imported drug product that will undergo phase 3 clinical studies in Brazil, the study protocol and the results or current status of the studies in compliance with the legislation in force has to be submitted. And whenever the phase 3 will take place with a new product manufactured in the country, pre-notification for the production of pilot batch according to the guide for the notification of pilot batches of medicine has to be submitted. Pretty simple pre-registration, and then registration like second stage. So we have to submit all the documents, correct? So that registration process starts. So in the documentation, what you submit? Registration petition form, proof of payment, copy of company's operation license, technical responsibility certificate, then copy of notification protocol of pilot batch production, GMP certificate. Okay. So all the technical documents are submitted during this second stage, that is registration phase. Then the protocol for new drug, it comprises of what? General data like packaging insert, label, expiry date, stability study in which you define the expiry date. Then the all toxicity study reports, clinical trial data. And for combination, maximum 3 is allowed for oral or injectable preparation. Right? 4 combination are allowed only if the fourth ingredient is caffeine. Then the physicochemical parameter of the drug, synthesis route, pharmacodynamic parameters, pharmacokinetic, production, QC of raw material data, finished products. So all these are all general information which goes under registration. Okay. Then the protocol for the import of new drug, GMP of importing country or inspection by ANVISA. Documentation is allowed in Portuguese, English or Spanish language. So label package insert must be in Portuguese. Then official document like certificate given by importing country. If it is in foreign language, that must be translated with the legal translator only. Okay. In some cases, applicator wants to import bulk drug from the foreign and then pack the product in Brazil. In such case, expiry date must be counted from the manufacturing date in foreign, okay, and not the packaging date in Brazil. Understood, no? Because manufacturing country is suppose out of Brazil and you are importing that product into Brazil and repacking and then selling. But the date of manufacturing will be considered in the manufacturing where it was manufactured earlier. So third stage is post-registration measures. So any registration changes shall follow the procedure listed in the guide for making post-registration alteration, including medicine. So post-registration measures means what? PV, pharmacovigilance. So you have to have your QPPV in place who can, do all this activity and provide the PV report, to the ANVISA. So ANVISA may undertake a control analysis of commercialized batches in official laboratories in order to monitor the quality and conformity of the drug with the drug registered. And whenever necessary, ANVISA may request that the companies train their technician in order to enable them to undertake this monitoring. So nowadays, as I said, pharmacovigilance has become extremely important in any country, whether it is ANVISA, India, US, Europe, Canada, wherever you go, the post-marketing surveillance activity is very, very important. You know? And you have to keep track, on adverse event, adverse reactions happening around the patient. So that was a brief registration process. We discussed about ANVISA. Now we move on to the Canada. Canada is again Health Canada, HBFB. Once these drugs are authorized for sale in Canada, once they have successfully gone through the drug review process. And this process is the means by which a drug application is reviewed by the scientist in health products and food branch. That is HBFB. HBFB is the national authority that regulates, evaluates, and monitors the safety, efficacy, and quality of the therapeutic and diagnostic product available in Canadians. Excuse me. So this is the brief procedure, regulatory procedure for the Canada. Okay, you can read. So it happens like preclinical studies, clinical trials, regulatory product submission, submission review, market authorization decision, public access, surveillance, inspection, and post-market. So by now you must have understood the concept of pre-market and the post-market, correct? So always there are 4 phases, right? Preclinical, which is the studies conducted in animals. Then the clinical trial, correct? Where phase 1, 2, 3. Then the product regulatory submission, submission review, market authorization, and when it is accessible to public, then the post-marketing surveillance. That is PV, pharmacovigilance. So in Canada, there are different types of application. Like in US FDA, we call it as IND, NDA, ANDA. In Canada, it is called NDS, that is New Drug Submission. Then SNDS, that is Supplemental New Drug Submission. Okay. So what is NDS means? It is as good as NDA, New Drug Application. So this is required for new drugs that have not been sold in Canada for a sufficient time and in sufficient quantity to establish their safety and effectiveness. It includes clinical trial information and details on production, packaging, labeling, conditions for use, and the side effect. And it requires 300 calendar days. Okay. So any new drug, whenever you want to register in any country, though it is Canada, US, Europe, or Brazil or any other country, Japan, it requires huge time because all the new drugs require data for preclinical till clinical all phase 1 to 3. Then only you can apply for new drug application, right? And that is why the time is huge. Then supplemental new drug submission required if substantial changes are made to a drug previously approved as a new drug submission, including dosage form, drug strain, method of manufacture and labeling. And the manufacturer wishes to expand the disease or the condition the product is approved to treat, diagnose and mitigation, correct? So you just remember, so there are different types of application like NDS, SNDS, then abbreviated new drug submission, what? ANDS, correct? And SNDS, correct? Like it is as good as our ANDA, abbreviated new drug application, correct? So here it is called abbreviated new drug submission, ANDS in Canada. Rest all documentations are required similar to what we submit in US FDA, IND, NDA, ANDA. Okay, the number of dates also more or less similar. Here also it takes 180 calendar days, right? This is required for new generic drug submission must include evidence that the generic is equivalent to the existing patented product. So in US also we say that our generic product is bioequivalent to the innovator product, and that's the reason we prove it as it is safe by performing, bioequivalence study, and we do not go for the clinical trial, right? Phase 1, 2, 3, because the safety and efficacy is already proven, and you are just going for the off patented drug, correct? Which is called as generics. So same way, same logic you can apply when you go for Canada. Then the supplemental abbreviated new drug submission required if changes are made to the new generic product. Okay. When you go for, variations and all, Europe, same way in Canada also, whenever you are going to make any changes to your new drug product, new generic product, I mean to say, which was previously approved as a ANDS, and including method of manufacture, labeling, recommended route of administration or no indication, then only you go for SNDS. Now we talk about OTC. More or less we have discussed. So for OTC, the DIN, drug identification number application, we call it as. A DIN is an application used most commonly for the OTC drugs that have established safety records but that require additional supporting data and a clinical review. Okay? And a DIN is divided into DIN A and DIN F. A means application is used most commonly for OTC that have established safety records but require additional supporting data. DIN-F means application is used most commonly for OTC drugs that comply with existing drug labeling and that do not require additional supporting data. Here it requires the additional supporting data, here it doesn't require. Okay, and when it doesn't require, it takes only 45 calendar days, and when the additional data is required, 210 days, because FDA authority also needs time to review that data, correct? So there are two types of OTC application. One is DIN-N and DIN-F. Understood? Then the post-marketing changes, that is CMC variation and all. So CMC is the chemistry or manufacturing changes. The manufacturer must inform Health Canada of changes to the drug that could adversely affect its safety, potency, purity, or effectiveness. So it takes 90 calendar days. Labeling and product monograph changes. They also you can inform to Health Canada that the drug that could adversely affect its safety, purity, potency, and effectiveness, and it also takes 90 days. Okay, so CMC information 90 days, labeling and product monograph changes 90 days. This is after when the drug product is already available in market and you are going to make any changes relevant to CMC or the labeling. And this is your Canadian drug review process. Okay. So you can see drug development, go to Health Canada review, then the patented medicine price review board, health technology assessment, hospitals, patient access. So you can go through this chart later on. I'm going to share this presentation with you. So with whom should I share the presentation? Can I have anyone's email ID on WhatsApp group so that I can share the PDF copy of our presentation for your study? Yeah. So next week I'm going to conduct one small quiz also, because it should not happen that you are learning, going ahead and forgetting everything which was taught earlier. What do you say?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
That is okay, na? So I will have one small MCQ type of, the Google form I will give, and you can just give small test so that it will easy for you to upgrade your knowledge continuously. Huh? So this is Health Canada, there are different committees, CEDAC, CED, CEDCCO, you can see these are the different committees which approves drug for sale in Canada. Now we move to Japan. So how many countries we have covered so far? Can anyone summarize? Hello?
UK, Australia, Brazil, Canada.
Perfect. And last week we have covered
US,
FDA, EMA.
US FDA, EMA, WHO, ICH. Morning only you told, na, somebody? Hmm?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have to keep, yourself very attentive. Otherwise, what will happen? It is in your hand only, whether to learn, learn nicely, or just attend the lecture for the namesake and close it. कभी खत्म होता है बस राह देखने. It should not be like that, because regulatory is a subject wherein you have to be very attentive. You have to learn each and every country specific regulations. Till now, you have seen each country has their own specific regulatory process, So you have to remember there are so many countries now. Now come to Japan. Japan is ruled by what? PMDA, Pharmaceutical and Medical Device Agency, and a Japanese Health Authority, Ministry of Health is what? MHLW, PMDA and MHLW. Okay, that is Ministry of Health and Labor Welfare. So the PMDA was established in April 2004 in order to serve in areas of review of drug and medical device, post-marketing safety measures, relief services for adverse health effects. Okay, so any health authority's main aim is to what? Again, safety, efficacy, and quality. Correct? So the role of PMDA is to provide consultation concerning the clinical trials of new drugs and medical devices, and to conduct approval reviews and survey of the reliability of application data. What is the function of PMDA? Drug and medical device testing, scientific review of market authorization and application based on Japanese pharmaceutical law, advices in clinical trial or in preparation of dossier for registration procedure, that is NDA. Then the inspection and conformity assessment of good clinical practices, GCP, GLP and GPSP. Then auditing of manufacturers to ensure they conform to GMP and what? QMS, Quality Management System. And this is the organization chart of PMDA. So you will find on website, okay? So how the hierarchy is like Chief Relief Officer, Director of Central for Product Evaluation, Office of Review, Administration, Management, like that. And medical devices, OTC, biologics, Office of Conformity Audit. This is a common chart which is available under www.pmda.go.jp. One thing is very crucial here. Japanese are very stricter health authority, and they ask for documented evidence for everything. And one more constraint is Japanese, the language barrier. So whatever you are providing data, you have to translate it into Japanese language. So very difficult health authority to get the marketing approval. The entire process of the review from review related inspection and clinical trial consultation to review works is undertaken by the PMDA. Application forms for approval to market drug are usually submitted to the PMDA. And when application forms for new drugs are issued by the PMDA, a compliance review of the application data, GCP on-site inspection and detailed review are undertaken by review teams of PMDA, and team prepares a review report. So here I have mentioned that IND, when you apply for the IND, that is investigational new drug application, pre-IND meeting happens. So pre-IND meeting is required in case of US FDA also, and in Brazil also we have seen. Similarly in Japan. Then the subsequent to application submission, PMDA evaluates the application with respect to preclinical data and the protocol for clinical study. And it may take 30 days, for the initial IND and the 14 days for second IND. After PMDA completes the review, the IND file will be IND file will be transferred to the IRB board to the review. Okay, for the review. So IRB takes 1 to 4 weeks for the time for the complete review. And once IRB approved the review, then the clinical trial on human being will be started. So in short, when you apply for IND-A in CTD format, there is a pre-IND meeting, and they generally take 30 days, for the initial IND, and after that for the second IND, 14 days. Correct? And then it goes to the IRB, Investigational Review Board, which takes 1 to 4 weeks, okay, for the complete review. And once it is reviewed, then only you can start your clinical trials in human. Okay. So same chart is explained here. You can see. Then come to, now IND we have discussed, come to NDA, that is New Drug Application Process, correct? So the entire process of approval review from, the review related inspection and clinical trial consultation to review works is undertaken by PMDA again. So when you apply through PMDA, the compliance review and all the, application data, GCP on-site inspection, everything will be happen through the PMDA team. Okay. So Similarly, the approval process consists of expert meeting of the review team members and expert to discuss important problems. Because NDA is a big application, correct? So NDA comprises of data which is coming from non-clinical, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, correct? So huge data is required. So it is again necessary to provide the list of person involved in compilation of attached data and the list of competitive products and companies in relation to person who participated in clinical studies. Because clinical studies is huge, na, phase 1, 2, 3. So all data, the list of companies, list of product, the how many sponsors were there, how many sites, how many subjects, everything you have to submit immediately after your application, correct? And prior to your expert meeting. So NDA review process in Japan happens like this. The applicant, you can see interview. PMDA is a body, where you can see there is a review team. When the report 1 is provided, report 2 is provided, the review is concluded, correct? So there will be back and forth discussion. Key issues are, discussing, and then it goes to MHLW. So MHLW again, there will be a review and conclusion. So conclusion of what? This report 1 and report 2. Here again it is reviewed by MHLW and then only you get the approval. Okay. So this is a very, what do you say, the straightforward procedure, but a time consuming, and you have to understood PMDA and MHLW, both the, bodies are involved along with the other experts, the experts and the committee on the drugs to have approval for NDA, because NDA again, it's a very big application. Then coming to our Asian countries, Asian is what? Southeast Asian countries. As we discussed last week, Asian comprises of 10 countries, and they have the regulatory process for obtaining marketing authorization for drugs in Asian region despite regional harmonization efforts. So while ICH and European medicine guidelines are acceptable in most of the Asian countries, there remain country-specific requirements to be addressed for successful marketing authorization approval by health authorities. Okay. So although the common technical document, that is CTD, can serve as a resource for most local marketing authorization application, is not necessarily required its full length. However, the compliance with local administrative data, legal data, country-specific stability requirement and product labeling is to be ensured. What is meaning out of it? Though CTD is a common technical document applicable to all regulated markets like US, Europe, Japan, still we have to meet the regional specific requirement. So in Asian countries, as we said, though CTD is applicable to most of the European and other health authority, still we have to make sure that we have to meet local administrative data. Okay, the compliance with local administrative data, legal data, and country specific stability requirement when we talk about Asian countries. So there are 10 countries falls under Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar. And all 10 countries are seeking economic development to improve competitiveness by eliminating trade barriers. Okay. So to help accomplish that, many Southeast Asian countries regulatory guidelines are harmonized with respect to ICH and European guidelines. And as I said, however, country-specific requirement persists with data sharing, mutual recognition, and current GMP practices facilitated by Asian members countries who become Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme like PICS. Okay. So many of the countries falls under PICS also. Those become a member of PICS. PICS is what? Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Schemes. So this is just a general information. So in Asian countries, generic drugs may be validated after the patent of an innovator original product expires. A patent is granted for a period of 20 years and cannot be extended. In Malaysia, there is a clause for data exclusivity stating that period of data exclusivity shall not be more than 5 years for a new drug product containing a new chemical entity and 3 years for the second indication of the registered drug product. The period of data exclusivity is for the data concerning the second indication only. And the Philippines accept data and patent protection measures from other countries. In Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Singapore, it is important to submit information regarding the active pharmaceutical ingredient, manufacturing site, finished product manufacturing site, batch number, packaging site, batch control testing, and release site. Okay. And as PICS member, Asian countries benefit by avoiding duplication of GMP inspection within the countries and facilitating quick trade for medicinal product across the region. So this is all general information. Just you have to remember how the registration happens in the Asian countries. Okay, as I mentioned last week, CTD comprises of 5 modules, that is module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas ACTD comprises of 4 parts, that is part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Okay, so part 1 talks about the administrative data, in which the introduction, table of content, application form, labeling information goes, whereas part 2 contains quality data, that is CMC data, chemistry, manufacturing and control. Part 3 is a non-clinical data and part 4 is a clinical overview and clinical summary. Okay, and part 1, here also it is said not part of ACTD because it is a country specific, regional specific requirement. In ECTD also, when we consider the 5 modules, the module 1 is not part of the CTD. Here also not part of ACTD. So you can see this chart, you can read yourself. So how the format is followed, you can see. So most probably ACTD, that is Asian Common Technical Document, is followed in all 10 countries. But in Philippines and Myanmar and Laos, they have some country-specific format also we have to follow. Otherwise, 5 years license validity is there in each country. And this is a comparison I have given as per country to country specific format. You can see application form is required everywhere. Copy of valid certificate with brand name clearance, certificate, COPP, free sale certificate, GMP certificate, license for manufacture, site master file, labeling, letter of authorization, patent, summary of product. So you can see 1 to 14, and then this is the technical documents comparison. That means the PDR is required or not, manufacture, quality control of excipient, quality control of finished product, reference standards. So almost everything is required in each country. So you can just browse through all these tables. Non-clinical document, clinical document. And these are the countries following regional format. So all these, technical document list which is given is required mandatory for each country, yeah? Not only the Asian countries, everywhere it is required. Then registration process in CIS countries. Okay, CIS is what? The CIS region is what? We have discussed last week, correct? The CIS region includes 12 countries such as Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, which require different regulatory guidelines for medicinal product registration as per their FDA guidelines. Okay, the different guidelines for the same region become a challenging task for the manufacturer and exporter. The registration of same product for different countries of CIS is not possible with the same dossier due to the lack of their regulatory harmonization. Correct? So Ukraine and Kazakhstan have harmonization and it varies in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. And Ukraine and Kazakhstan are also imposing strict rules and expecting US FDA level documents for approval. So now I will just discuss one or two countries registration procedure, and then you can read other countries, because there are so many countries, and we cannot discuss each and every country, correct? Otherwise we will require 1 year to cover all regulatory processes. But for your information, I have gathered all the relevant information and made this presentation out of it, so that you can read and understand yourself. Okay, it's very pretty easy, straightforward sentences, and the regulatory procedure, only the difference you have to capture. Otherwise, see, each health authority requires data relevant to quality, safety, and efficacy. Each health authority requires application fees, correct? So let us talk about Armenia. The registration procedure for Armenia can be briefly described in stages, that is state fee payment, submission of the application for registration of the registration dossier, sample of medicinal product and standard for laboratory control. Then preliminary examination, obtaining an opinion on the preliminary examination and invoice on the cost of expert work payment, receipt of payment confirmation, specialized document examination, quality, safety, efficacy assessment, risk-benefit ratio, manufacturing condition observation, documentation on quality assurance of raw material, finished product, shelf life, stability studies, reports, labeling, instruction, use, etc. During which question on submitted documents may be asked or additional documents may be requested by this Armenia Health Authority. Okay. Then the registration procedure for this medicinal product, you have to give the answer to the remarks of the specialist expertise. Then the laboratory examination happens, issuance of conclusion of laboratory examination, whether it meets the requirement or not, and providing examination conclusion to the pharmacological board, issuance of registration conclusion, receipt of registration conclusion notification, and issuance of registration certificate, disposition of artwork, instruction, and general characteristics of the medicinal product on the site. Okay, so once you follow all these, procedure in detail, your application or your approval will be, published on their website. Okay, how US FDA published the information that Cipla has received approval of remdesivir or any drug which gets approval, it has to be published on their respective website. Then Russia also follow different stages. The regulatory registration procedure falls under 4 sequential stages. One is creation of a registration dossier, including document necessary for clinical study initiation and submission of registration dossier to Ministry of Health of Russian Federation. Then obtaining a permission for the conduct of clinical trial in Russian Federation. Then the drug quality evaluation and evaluation of the expected benefit to possible risk ratio, which is done after the clinical study of the drug. Okay, and the third stage may be divided into two sub-stages. That is drug quality control at the federal state budgetary institution and evaluation of the expected benefit to possible risk ratio. Okay, and this procedure of drug procedure is what in Russia the procedure for the drug registration falls under 4, right? So 1, 2, 3 we have described. Fourth is what? Decision by the Ministry of Health from the Russian Federation. Then the registration time frame, it generally requires 210 working days, okay, to get the approval in Russia. So like that, what I mean to say, I have brought the content for you guys to read about each country, how the product registration happens. Okay, like Kyrgyzstan, Ukraine, then Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, okay, then Azerbaijan, you can see Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, Turkmenistan, and these are the so many references from where we have brought all the content together for you guys. And thank you for your patient hearing. See, more or less, you have to remember what are the CMC documents required, application fees, how the application is reviewed, how much timelines, how much fees, each country specific, regional specific requirement we have to meet, and the most important parameters is quality, safety, efficacy. That is non-clinical, clinical data, and quality relevant data means CMC data, that is chemistry, manufacturing, and control. Okay. Thank you for your kind attention, and we will spend some time in question and answer because it was a very heavy session. So many countries, so many rules, regulations you have to remember. But once you understand the basic concept, it remains the same. Okay, what is required by any health authority to protect public health? That once you understand, it would be easy for you to, make the registration dossier, compile into respective country-specific format, meet the regional specific requirement, and go ahead with the registration procedure. There will be back and forth communication. Okay. Then you have to reply to agency. The agency will come for the inspection of your facility. They will inspect all the records will be seen against the application which you have submitted, and then the approval will be given. Okay. So in this way, you have to remember those 3 quality, safety, efficacy parameters along with other regional specific requirements. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and we will discuss about the question and answer.